Super Mario Odyssey is inarguably one of the greatest 3D platformers of all time, packed with some of Nintendo's most awe-inspiring moments. I remember the nostalgia of returning to the Mushroom Kingdom, the thrill of learning the game's movement mechanics, and the oh shit moment at the end when you realize you can possess Bowser. But the game's biggest and most memorable set piece is the final story mission in the Metro Kingdom, where you help the citizens of New Donk City celebrate their city's beginnings. It harkens to the iconic plumber's roots while also looking towards the franchise's future. You pair that with a backing track that sounds like it was designed to extract nostalgia and wonder from the listener, and it nearly had me teary-eyed the first time I played this game. However, just recently I played through this part of the game a second time, and I realized something. This whole city is weird as hell. Let's talk about it. Also, hi, my name is freaking Nick. I ask way too many questions about the lore for video games, so if that interests you, maybe consider subscribing.
Here we go, off the rails.
New Donk City is part of the Metro Kingdom in Super Mario Odyssey. It seems to be a pretty bustling community where there are absolutely no children, they're all working age adults, they all dress nearly identical, and they are all freakishly tall in comparison to Mario. Though to be fair, Mario is canonically a short king. They really like their taxis to the point where their RC vehicles are also taxis, and they absolutely adore advertising. The other ways that people could find employment in New Donk City seem pretty typical. You've got your coffee shops, you've got your banana bagels, you've got governmental positions, there's a lot of construction going on, we'll get to that later, and there is the power plant. They also really like to tout the fact that they are the first location of the crazy cap store that you see all over Super Mario Odyssey. I could go a lot further into the economy and the employment and all that stuff, but I feel like I don't wear enough hair clips to be qualified for that job. I think all you need to know is that they are a typical metropolitan area, which sounds normal, but its juxtaposition with the other locations that are inhabited by like robots and mermaids and whatever these things are, it makes it so the New Donkers seem like they're the weirdos, you know? Especially because Mario and Peach are supposed to be our reference to what humans are supposed to look like, and the New Donkers look vastly different from them. It's this weird phenomenon where it's like a reverse uncanny valley, where the fact that they look more normal to what regular humans look like is more unnerving to us because we're so used to seeing these cartoon versions of Mario, Peach, Luigi, all of them.
It's time to raise our sails.
But let's get into the weird shit, like the geographical location of this kingdom and its implications on the real world. All the construction going on in New Donk City is supposed to pay homage to the 1981 video game Donkey Kong, which is the first appearance of Mario in gaming. In-game dialogue explicitly states that New Donk City is built where the events of Donkey Kong took place, which makes sense because the name of the city references Donkey Kong, but it is worth noting that Miyamoto has stated that Donkey Kong takes place in New York City. You might be thinking that this is something that the developers originally intended for Donkey Kong, and then for Mario Odyssey they decided to retcon it, but that is not the case, because this interview with Miyamoto took place in 2023, when they were promoting the Super Mario Bros. Movie, which is after Super Mario Odyssey came out. So for those of you keeping track at home, New Donk City was built in the same location that Donkey Kong 1981 took place, and Donkey Kong 1981 took place in New York City, meaning that New Donk City is part of New York City. If you look to the north, you see what looks like the Manhattan skyline with the Empire State Building, you know, all that stuff. And then if you look to the west and to the east, you will see bridges that cross a river that New Donk City is built out of. And if you look to the south, is what I would presume is supposed to be Jersey City. However, there are tons more skyscrapers to the north, south, east, and west than there are normally in New York City. Also, Manhattan is supposed to be to the east of the Hudson River instead of the north, so the only logical explanation for this is that Super Mario Odyssey takes place on an Earth where the cataclysmic event occurred and shifted the poles, so east is now north. Also, a lot of other weird stuff must have happened to the world, because if you look at the world map, this does not look like New York. I'll give you that one for free. And finally, everything about the surrounding Metro Kingdom gives an odd sense of scale to New Donk City, because New Donk is built out of the Hudson River on a giant obelisk. Meanwhile, every other building around in the Metro Kingdom is not built up on an obelisk. They're just built up out of the ground, which makes it seem like New Donk City is comparatively teeny tiny to the point where their residents might be a lot smaller than the residents of the surrounding kingdom. Are you weirded out yet? Because I've got a lot more stuff to talk about. I mentioned earlier in this video that New Donk City is a good location in the game to look towards the future while celebrating the franchise's past. With a lot of classic media and with world history, celebrating the past isn't always a good thing. I'm not saying it's always a bad thing, it often is, but it's not always. Just like how Mickey Mouse separated a mother pig from her piglets to play with her nipples in Steamboat Willie, Mario's earlier appearances haven't aged super well. The plot to Donkey Kong seems pretty straightforward. Monkey kidnaps Pauline, Mario saves Pauline from Monkey. However, just like if I were to say, I love boobies, the context is important. Miyamoto has stated in interviews that Donkey Kong used to be Mario's pet. He didn't see Donkey Kong as the villain of the game Donkey Kong, but rather as an individual acting on his own self-interest. In fact, there's only really one true villain when we're talking about Donkey Kong here. This is highlighted in the game Donkey Kong Jr., which shows Mario trying to keep Donkey Kong Sr. in a cage, and he brandishes a whip to stop the baby gorilla from saving his daddy. And to add even more context to everything, the Donkey Kong from the original Donkey Kong is Cranky Kong, who is clearly sentient, meaning that I don't even think this qualifies as just being mean to animals. This is imprisonment and inhumanity, and I question whether or not Mario was ever held accountable for his actions because, you know, instead of trying to hide this dark part of their history, the people of New Donk City actively celebrate it. Their main street is called Cranky Avenue, which, you know, they're naming it after the gorilla that was held captive. But I guess since history is written by the winners, it is named after the person who traumatized their mayor 40 years ago. It is possible and actually probable that they ended up settling their differences with the Kongs because, you know, Mario is buddy-buddy with Donkey Kong, who is the grandson of Cranky Kong, the ape that he imprisoned. However, nothing really excuses this next thing. They have another avenue called K. Rool Avenue, which is named after the guy who was trying to rid the world of all the Kongs. But none of this holds a candle to the weird celebration that I touched on at the beginning of this video. Because you're telling me that to celebrate their heritage, the mayor is taking the man who saves her from his own gorilla several years prior, and she's putting him in this obstacle course where he can die, and then they throw flaming barrels of oil at him, because heritage. To cap it all off, at the end of the segment is yet another gorilla for Mario to kill. This is at best the equivalent of a Civil War reenactment celebrating animal cruelty, and at worst, it's a gladiatorial spectacle where they sacrifice the weaker of a chubby plumber and a sentient primate while the entire city cheers it on. Also, not to be too woke or anything, but it can't be good for the environment and the health and safety of those nearby to just torch hundreds of barrels of oil for a spur-of-the-moment celebration. Furthermore, this is the only story mission in all of Super Mario Odyssey that you can play over and over again. So they're just willing to light a bunch of more barrels of oil on fire at a whim, just whenever Mario feels like it. There are tons of other reasons why New Donk City is just a very weird culture. I haven't even touched on the T-Rex that's just randomly chilling there. But at the end of the day, these people are a bunch of heritage-obsessed freaks that are stuck in the 1940s, both in the way that they dress and the way that they view what is and isn't acceptable in how you treat animals. All that being said, my name is freaking Nick. I hope to see you again, and if not, I hope you have a good life. Thanks for watching.